It is the very last day in Taurus, and I haven't made a video. That is because I wanted to take the month of Taurus and really talk about really think about and work on what my body desired. These first 4 signs are called the preliminary signs. The first step in the zodiac was Aries. That was examining our thoughts. The second one is Taurus. That's examining our bodies. And I felt like my body didn't want me to record. So I didn't put myself on camera, and I made the realization that I do not want to be a daily vlogger, and I do not want to make a video every single day or film something every single day. So instead, I need to take time to think out these ideas, make them more fruitful, and not do this renegade filmmaking where you just sit down and start talking. I need to actually come up with some stuff. And because of that, I actually did. I spent the whole month of Aries, or the whole month of Taurus, or the whole sign of Taurus, really just focusing on my body. And so what I did is I stopped filming, and I started meditating. Every day I would take about 20 minutes and do a meditation. In that, I started examining what were my bodily desires. So what are the things that I'm doing habitually that I'm not even thinking about? Do I want to have a drink? Do I want to go for a smoke? And so the first thing I did was I listed all of my bodily desires. And so I'm going to read those to you now. And it is food, sex, coffee, anger, weed, sleep or rest, cigarettes, alcohol, books, things, and forms. So those are things that I felt like my body was desiring. So let's talk about some of those. Food. Always going to need and want food. You always want to eat something. You're always going to need nourishment. So that is like a survival desire. That's something that you innately need. But what you don't have to do is you don't have to overindulge in eating. I found that my cravings come really, really late in the night whenever all I want to do is eat sugar and sweets. And it turns out if you only eat sugar and sweets and then you cut that out, it actually shocks the system and it can make you very grumpy. Sex. So whenever you desire sex and it's unrelenting, it can control every aspect of your thinking. The only thing that you're thinking about is whenever I'm going to get that next sexual release. And sex isn't even really supposed to be about that. But we'll talk about that later. Coffee. This one's pretty obvious. I love coffee. Just the taste, the smell, the flavor. I love chocolate, I love caramel, I love sweet, and it wraps up all of that. And sometimes it can even taste kind of tobacco-y. And I guess that leads us into our next thing, which I don't usually, or I haven't partaken in a while, which is cigarettes. Anytime that people are smoking around me, I always want one. My body wants one. And I know in here that I shouldn't smoke and that I'm not smoking anymore and I've quit, but there's that urge. I see somebody smoke and it's like, I could take a hit of that. And that one is hard to control. Which brings me to the one that I feel like I indulge in the most, which is, I guess, secondhand to cigarettes, which is smoking weed. I actually smoke quite a bit, but not as much now that I realize it as some other people do. My tolerance is pretty moderate. I am a habitual smoker, though, is the thing. So I smoke at least once a day, every day. That is something that we're going to work on. Alcohol. Alcohol kind of falls in the same vein as weed, but I fell more into smoking rather than drinking. But I recently have had an ignition. Maybe not recently. It's come to my attention that I was really good at drinking and that I could drink a lot, but I get really, really trashed. So I need to, it's not a problem, but I need to regulate that. Everything in moderation. Everything in moderation. This next one is more of an emotion, but I actually realized that I love feeling it, and it's anger. My body likes to be mad at things for some reason, and actually it's not for just some reason, and so your body actually gets hooked on feeling that way. and it wants to feel that way more. And so you'll get mad or frustrated about more things so that you can feel more mad and frustrated, so that there is that emotional release. And that can lead into this one, which I do sometimes. I guess I do it a lot, which is being lazy or resting or sleeping. Rest is good, over resting is bad. We are creatures that need to do things, and it's like the cow's job is to graze the field, the lamb's job or the sheep's job is to make wool. What's the human's job? It's to tend to all of those things. If you want to stay on the ground and sleep or rest, then you'll never get anything done. And it's not your true intention, it's not your real want. We love work, actually. It makes us feel like we have a purpose. On my final category, which is like books and things, and I guess this falls into forms, but I love things. Little bits and bobs, little trinkets. And I mean, I bought like 12 books this month. That's a lot, especially because some of these not cheap. That's potentially upwards of like $350 just on books in 30 days. That's $10 every day that I'm spending on a book. And I haven't even read any of these. I haven't even opened some of these. I don't know if that's ever going to go away. Me buying books with the intent to read them and then them just becoming part of my library, but it's something that I'm probably going to do for a long time. And I do have to regulate that desire, because if I don't, I will just go nuts and I'll buy. Instead of 12 books, it would have been 50, truly, because I had some other ones that I would have gotten as well. And then forms. And this falls into like the category of sex, which we'll talk about again. So now that I've given you like sort of a brief synopsis of Taurus, what are we doing here today? I am going to organize my books because my wife and I are moving out of this house. Well, that didn't work. There are 4 words that we can use to describe Taurus. And that is God, sex, law, and sin. So what do I mean by all of those things? Why do I have tape here? This is a very cool book. Japanese cocktail book. Let's get. What does it go into, though? Maybe... Well, let's look up what pure science means real quick. The natural science is like geology. Taurus. So we talked about all the things that like my body desired, but like what embodies the sign? And I think those 4 words do a pretty good job of it. God, sex, law, and sin. So I want to define them all for you. What is God? And wow, that one's a really steep question, but I think from all of the reading that I've done, God is kind of everything. And understanding that the bookcase is God, and you and I are God, and the form is God. Like, it's not a physical being, it's the culmination of all of the things. I think I wrote it down right here. Well, here's a good way to describe God. God is the sum total of all form and consciousness. So, if God is everything, then we need to stop the illusion that we are separate from nature, which is another part of Taurus. Taurus is part of the fixed earth. Whoa. So, an earth sign would be something that is very grounded, but also in a physical form of natural containers. There's a problem talking about a table being a table. If we define a table as a thing with 4 legs and a flat top, then lots of things can be a table. But to occupy our conscious awareness of what a table is, then there must exist a generalized form for the table. in some sort of collective consciousness that whenever you see something, you know if it's got four legs and a flat top, it might be a table, but I know for certain that, say, this thing is a table and this thing is not a table. The Maya of illusion of form is that those two things are separate whenever truly they're the same thing. They're both just energy vibrating at a weird frequency. And the soul inside of you is just riding this body, which is another part of Taurus. That the soul should be in charge of what the body is doing, not the body in charge of what the soul is doing, which is why I did the exercise of writing down all of what I felt and why I stopped filming and started just observing what my body was doing. It didn't want to be filmed, and instead I just kind of let it do its thing, and I just sat back as the mind and just observed what I was doing. So if you want a good starting point for Taurus, maybe sit down and reflect on what you gave into. It's because of the law of attraction that we are even attracted to things in the first place. That's so redundant, but it's like if you didn't like what you wanted, then you wouldn't want what you liked, you know? Even that's so silly. I don't know. Let's go back to sorting this. The sonnets of Shakespeare. I think that's literature. But now that we've talked about God, let's talk about sex. And sex doesn't only have to do with just the act of sex. Why am I being so weird? Sex doesn't have to do with just the act of being sex. It's trying to encompass a whole entire aspect of feeling, which is that deep attraction that you have for things. And mostly it's forms, right? You see a pretty girl, you say, damn, that girl is hot. And then you approach her at the bar, trying to be in like, hey girl, let me slide in them DMs. But we all know, trying to get in them sheets, dude. And that's chill. Like, that's the law of attraction at its finest. Like, you see a form, you like the form, you talk to it, you find out that you like the soul. And maybe you don't like the soul, but you do like the form so much. That's giving into that sexual desire. That's part of Taurus. Understanding that that is like an energy that lives within you, and you have to grapple with it. I mean, it's like all things, right? If you give in to these lower desires mindlessly, then they become vices. And you just start loving just feeling that release. But if you try to connect with somebody and use your sex to elevate your connection with somebody else, that has a tremendous effect on your relationship and your soul, your spirit, and how it exists. So, you know, have tons of sex. Do it. Yeah, I have no idea. Sex is a weird thing because it's like we obviously want to do it because it feels good, but how do you approach it in a way that you're not just like, I'm just doing this because it feels good, you know? And love comes into place. You have to love somebody to fully give yourself over to somebody else. And whenever that happens, you marry those consciousnesses and you maybe lose yourself a little bit to that other person. And I just think that's a beautiful thing. Oh. Understanding your sexual urges brings in this understanding of the law of attraction. And whenever you start to understand the law of attraction, you can see how it affects you. What are the things that I am doing that are attracting things? And what are the things that I am doing that are repelling things? Because it's a two-way street. And the law is just really anything that constrains the universe. There's the law of gravity or the universal law of the speed of light or things like that. And they're just these parameters that we're observing that might transcend space and time, like the law of attraction. Like there's always going to be love or some emotional connection in between people. Like that law and understanding of it actually can give you more freedom. Oh, it's arts and rec, duh. I'm gonna have a lot of this pile. I need to reorganize it. We like sports and we don't care who knows, from shooting hoops to the Super Bowl. History and medieval. This is a 900. The last thing that we need to talk about in terms of Taurus is the final word, which is sin. And sin is really easy to define. It's just how far you miss the mark. So let's say you were trying to start a YouTube series and then you took a month off. You missed the month, or missed the mark by a month. So just life. That's it. That's all I have to say about it. Sin is just how far away you miss from the bullseye. And usually in sin, you give an excuse. And the excuse is rooted in a desired outcome. You wanted to hit the bullseye, so you say, oh, the sun was in my eye, I couldn't hit the bullseye. And that is bullshit. And that's the Taurus. That's it. While I didn't film every day, I did do stuff. Like, I drew on this big board. And I basically took the whole day off and just sat on the ground and did meditations, listening to my favorite music, and just doodling. I've also started doing daily drawings, pretty much, and here's a little snippet of my notebook that I do. I really like this one, and I'm colorblind, so don't look at this one. The Secret Teachings of All Ages. Jeez. Where do you put this? But yeah, that's basically everything. I don't know, man. Did a lot of meditation. I kept up with cold showers and Wim Hof every day. I missed some days on cold showers. I kind of stopped doing yoga. But I'll get back into it. Morgan and I are about to move houses, so I probably won't make another video until we move into that house in Gemini. And going forward, I'm going to try to shoot for 2 videos in Gemini, one in the middle and one at the end. In the middle, I'm going to talk about like what I've experienced so far, what I think I should feel in the future, and then we'll talk about a recap. I don't know. I realize that I'm kind of an artist. That's what I want to be, is an artist. And I don't want to be a mystic. I don't want to be like a psychologist. I just want to make things that people like. They like to look at, they like to watch, they like to listen to. So I'm just going to do that. And this is just another medium. I can draw, I can sing, I can dance. I need to learn how to play some instruments. I need to learn how to be a filmmaker. I need to learn how to be an animator. There are different mediums that I'm still exploring, but I think to describe Tristan, you just say he's an artist. I'll see you in Gemini.